Meanwhile, Egypt has taken numerous steps this year to deepen ties with other African nations. Cairo has intensified political, economic and security dialogue with the continent's leaders as it prepares to chair the African Union in 2019. For more on Egypt's efforts to connect with its African roots and its plans for Africa, our correspondent Adel EL Mahrouky spoke to Egypt's head of Parliament's African Relations Committee, Tarek Radwan. Let's take a look.
In your opinion, what are the main highlights of Egypt's connectivity with Africa in 2018?
I'd like to highlight on the vision and the mission that was developed by the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to go back to Africa. It's not, we're not inventing a new wheel or something, but it's just a comeback. But I believe that he was very much poised and positioned to make this comeback sounding and very strong. 35% of the President's international visits were to Africa and African countries several times. We're talking about at least 89 trips. The President was very much determined to invite and to bring the African youth and African administration. The military expo that was held in Cairo, 15 defense ministers and chief of staffs were present. He also focused on developing the intertrade agreements between African countries, South-South basis, and using and utilizing the natural resources between all the countries, the African countries, because as you know, the intertrade span between African countries does not extend more than 1%, which is very, I must say, it's very poor.
As you've mentioned, on the governmental level, there has been an intense movement toward Africa. What is exactly the role, or how does the Parliament African Committee fit into that?
The legislative level, which focuses on the interparliamentary relations between African parliaments, that we have started working on that and have in Egypt, and for the first time 90 female representation out of 594. And we have also 170 youth under the age of 35 that are members of the parliament, and we are very much poised in order to enhance youth and women participation in parliaments. Likewise, this is what's happening in Africa, and as I've mentioned, Africa is a young continent with 65% of its population under the age of 25. So this number is big. This number could be a driving power.
So what are the main challenges that you see lie ahead of Egypt to connect more with Africa?
You don't get to see fellow or colleagues from African parliaments, but on international mediums or regional mediums, whether it is the APU, African Parliamentary Union, or the IPU, Interparliamentary Union, and they does not exceed more than 4 times a year, which is very little. So that was a first challenge, because when you want to talk business, when you want to talk about social relation, when you want to talk politics, if you want to talk about investment, if you want to talk about education, if you want to talk about healthcare, it all starts here in the parliament. So we have to enhance interparliamentary relations between African countries. We have to talk and look at each other's eyes in order to identify and put a focus and a compass for what needs to be done.
Egypt is chairing the African Union in 2019. What does Egypt envision to achieve in the coming year?
I've touched with sincere dedication and devotion from the President, and I believe that during the Africa Investment Forum that was held in Sharm el-Sheikh, his course of talks and presentation has changed from a president of a country that belonged to Africa to a president or a head of the African Union. So he changed the whole, there has been a dramatic change in the course of addressing even. And he was giving mandates to investors. He was giving opportunities for countries that are aiming to go into Africa using Egypt as a vehicle of presence in the African continent. We have also 90 million Africans suffering from hepatitis B and C. So Egypt has a very strong presence in fighting the virus C in Egypt, and maybe we could transfer our experience and the technology developed to produce the medication to combat virus C. We have also a very active Minister of Investment and International Cooperation. She's looking up to develop businesses worth of at least 80 to 90 billion US dollars the coming year for Africa. So the issue is not money, it's the issue of setting up the proper platform and medium to attract investors.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.